Welcome to episode 6 of Hourigan, Kluger, and Quinn's podcast, Firm Thinking. My name's Nicole Santo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Lombardo.
We are so excited to introduce to all of you our special guest today, Magic93's own Frankie Warren. Hi, Frankie.
The view, I wish it was in person, but we'll take whatever we can get, right?
Absolutely. Frankie, we've been introducing on our podcast a number of folks who have different roles in the community and folks that everyone knows, but maybe doesn't really know a lot about. You're someone that people probably spend their morning commute with every day for quite a long time, but they don't really get to know you sort of beyond the microphone. So we wanted to ask you some questions about that, maybe some questions about the music industry in general and the radio business, and kind of see what your thoughts are on those things.
Absolutely. I would love it. I want to compliment both of you because I enjoy your podcast. I loved the one where you guys were talking about that Netflix show. Was it American Murder, American Family? Wasn't that the most unbelievably well done documentary? I thought that was incredible.
The reason I liked it is because I did not hear about that story. And I know that and we talked about that on the podcast, that it got a lot of media attention. But for some reason, it was just completely off my radar. So I was learning all that information for the first time, and it was fascinating. And you know, they were kind of foreshadowing some things, but it kind of took a lot of twists and turns. So it was really interesting.
It was really, really well done. You don't see. Yeah, that was really, really good the way you guys discussed it. And that was a super show. Everybody should watch that because it's chilling and it's all true. Everything you're seeing is actually happened. It's crazy.
You know, it's interesting, Frankie, in terms of starting this podcast, in a lot of ways, this kind of grew out of those little snippets that the folks from our firm do with you. We record those every so often, and we give these little sort of tips on the law. And we kind of thought that, that we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time to kind of have a forum with the community. So it's basically, that was the idea, that little minute or two that we get to spend to you kind of on steroids.
Well, that's good. Folks don't know the attorneys from Hourigan, Kluger, and Quinn come in once a week, every Friday, and we talk about different topics that are important to families, kids and children, grandparents, and they're very, very enlightening. And I've gotten to know all of these attorneys now, so I have a stack of business cards. Whatever kind of trouble I get in, I know just who to call.
Well, the problem is we only do civil law, so hopefully you stay out of the crosshairs of the police because we can't really help you too much there. But from a civil standpoint, by all means, you have all the bases covered.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, anything I can help you guys with is great. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and it's really cool to kind of be on a podcast now in 2020 and, different ways that information gets spread out there. It's really cool.
Sure.
Well, Frankie, we're excited to kind of flip the script with you today because, as Mike said, we do come to see you and we do our HKQ Kids radio spots. But we kind of want to talk to you. I know you're usually doing the interviewing. We want to interview you today and kind of, like Mike said, get some information out there that some people might not know about you. So why don't you kind of tell us about yourself and how you ended up at Magic93?
Long, long time ago, before you were born, Nicole and Mike, back when I was in high school, I got involved in the theater department at Bishop Hoban. One of the teachers dragged me into the plays because they thought that I was kind of funny and I had no problem getting up and speaking in front of the class. So I got to do some of the comedic roles in the shows at Bishop Hoban. And from there, I really enjoyed that. Went to college. One of my best buddies was very involved in radio. We went to the college radio station and joined there. After my freshman year, I got my first job at a country radio station, which was in Edwardsville at the time, and played country music and stuff for 2 years, part-time, full-time. Then I went to another station, worked part-time, full-time, worked my way up to mornings, program director and music director. And then in 1988, I moved over to Magic93, and I've been there for a long time. I don't think there's ever been a morning personality in Northeast Pennsylvania that's done the morning show for as long as I have consecutively. It's coming up on 32 years in just a couple of days. So it's been a long, long time, but I love it. I love every minute of it.
I know that every time that we stop, well, we've been doing we've been recording them remotely, our little talks with you lately, but when we were pre-coronavirus, when we were still coming into the studio, you always did mention how much that you enjoy your job. So what are the pros and cons of being a radio DJ these days?
Number one is the money. No, there's not. No. I don't know. If you think about it, like when I was younger and why I wanted to get into this, I like making people smile. I like entertaining people. I love music. I love current events. I love pop culture. So what kind of job could you possibly have where you could mix all those things together and turn it into a career? And that's just what I have. We get to go on the radio and talk about Dancing with the Stars and The Bachelorette and what happened to that couple on Flip or Flop. It's just like, that's my job. Like, it's really funny that that's my job. And we get to talk about music and play music. We say today's hits and yesterday's favorites. So we're doing everything from Billy Joel and Elton John and Bruce Springsteen to Maroon 5 and Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga. So it's like, wow, what a great job. I'm actually in there listening to music that I love, getting a chance to entertain people, go out in public and meet people pre-corona. So yeah, it's been ideal for me. I love it.
And obviously, Frankie, you've been such a success with Magic 93 for so long. What has kind of kept you in this area? What has kept you here? I'm sure you've probably had opportunities to go elsewhere, but, and I know you're a big proponent of the Wyoming Valley. So, what do you like best about, being here?
I do love this area. This is home, born and raised. And yes, you get offers or you talk to people and you think about moving to other markets. And for me, I always kind of enjoyed the big fish in a little pond scenario, which, is different than sometimes going to bigger markets and getting swallowed up. Here, I can make my jokes on the radio about, going to the mall and going to Pomeroy's or Hess's, and people will get those jokes. Like, we have a history, like me and my listeners, of all the things that have gone on in this area. I can talk about the Agnes flood and how you sometimes go to people's homes and their basements still smell like the flood, and people get that humor.
Right.
So to me, it's kind of like these are my people. This is my area. We all kind of come from the same thing. We can talk about food and bazaars and picnics and the Bloomsburg Fair and Luzerne County Fair. So I kind of feel like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Obviously, you're in the music business. You love music. The Magic 93 format kind of gives you some latitude because it's not just top 40. You kind of get into, you're talking about before some of the 80s music, even back into the 70s, I guess, which would be considered oldies now, which is crazy. So I wanted to ask you about your personal tastes in music. What do you like? What do you listen to when you're off the air?
I am one of those weirdos. I really like everything, which is bizarre, but I was named after Frank Sinatra. So for me, growing up, like, our house was, Frank Sinatra all the time, every album, the Christmas album. Our basement was decorated with the covers of every Frank Sinatra album in 45. My dad loved Frank Sinatra. So I grew up listening to that and like Glenn Miller and big bands and jazz. So I got an appreciation for that. And then when I was younger, you got into the Beatles and then pop music and, the Rolling Stones, and Elton John came along in the 70s, even, Barry Manilow, that kind of pop music. So for me, I love Bruce Springsteen. I love Van Morrison. I love Sinatra. I love Electric Light Orchestra. I love Stevie Wonder. You name it. There's great music out there. And to have that part of your day every day, even though we don't get to pick the music ourselves, our program director, music director does, it's a great blend of music that I love. And, even like the awesome 80s weekends that we do are so much fun because I remember every song. I remember every video. I remember the hairstyles. I remember the outfits. It was great.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that is interesting for all, we're a little bit younger. Nicole and I are a little bit younger. We're not much younger than you. But one of the things that I think is fascinating is that music as we know it isn't really that old. Music as we know it, I think, kind of had its roots in the 50s when rock kind of switched from like the big band era that you were mentioning into the rock and roll, like kind of like the bass guitar and the electric guitar and the singer and the drummer. That's not that old. It hasn't been that long ago. And a lot of the people that were like sort of the architects of music, although we're losing a lot of them now over the course of the last couple of years, but have been with us in our lifetime. What's your thought on that?
That's so true. And it is sad to see all these people passing away now, isn't it? Like just this year when you see all these people turning 70, 72 years old, and some of them are passing away. it's really, really sad because they were pioneers. But it's something like, you know, how many great musicians, you know, from Springsteen, you name it, all talked about when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan as the defining moment of their life, how just that one moment changed their life and so many other people's lives because it made them want to go out and pick up a guitar and play rock and roll. Before the Beatles, who was on the charts? You know, like you look, you know, it was Bobby Vinton, you know, it was all those kind of like
different
acts
kind of
like
music.
that, and then all
Just
yes,
like
everything
easy listening, like the big bands, like that type of thing. I think sometimes it's hard, probably for people born more recently, you know, into the 90s and so forth, to understand how much of a change that was and how revolutionary that sound was at that time. And we're still being influenced by it.
Right, and there's, you know, and I guess as we become our parents, you know, we yell at our kids to turn down the rap or turn down the heavy metal or whatever. Can you imagine, you know, the parents of some 15-year-old in 1964 screaming to turn that nonsense off, the Beatles, it's just noise, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's incredible how timeless it is, though, how timeless that music is.
Right, it is. Like, those songs are still great songs today, and even though you look back on that, how long ago? That's 60, I don't know, whatever, how many years ago that is, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And even like a genius like Paul McCartney, we talk about Paul McCartney sometimes on the air. What kind of a genius is that? Listen to some of the words to those Beatles songs that he wrote when he was 18, 19, 20 years old. These are these deep songs about love and emotion and loss. Like, what was in him that allowed him to do that at that young age? And John Lennon the same way. And Bruce Springsteen talks about he, you know, never went anywhere except for 15 minutes away from his house, never worked a day in his life, never worked in a factory, but yet he wrote all these songs about the working class man that everybody could relate to, and he really had no experience with it. It's genius.
Did you see that? I can't remember the name of it, but it's a newer movie. Basically, the concept is if the Beatles never existed.
I did. The movie was called Yesterday. That was a good movie.
Yes, yeah. So that was an interesting perspective.
It was. And the perspective was that if the you know, the Beatles had never existed and he was the only person in the world who knew these songs, and he was a singer, he kind of remembered the songs, and he became a huge star because he exposed the world to all those songs and those great words, and still people were amazed by it all because to this day they're just great songs.
That's the beauty of that movie, though. It gives you perspective on how incredible those songs were, capturing those feelings, and they're so simple but so complex.
Right, and that's one of the rare times that Paul McCartney allowed, you know, those songs to be used in a movie or to be used in that, you know, magnitude, because all those songs were featured in that movie because it was such an homage to them. It was such done out of love and respect for them.
Good stuff.
So
it is. It's great.
I know some of us, some people are listening only, but then others might be watching on YouTube. And I just have to ask, Frankie, I can see in your background that there are, you know, it looks like records, gold records, platinum, silver. Can you just tell us what's behind you?
Yes, I bought those on eBay. They're fake. No, they're back when I was a music director, program director, and certain albums, certain artists that you would kind of break or be, you know, privy to getting them on the air maybe before other parts of the country did, and they would always be very nice to send you a gold album or a gold record or a platinum album. My favorite one behind me is actually a Stevie Wonder one, which I received years ago. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if the record companies do that as much now, but yeah, that was always a great thrill to have your name on there and feel like a part of history in a way.
We talked a few moments ago about the program director and the selection of the music that gets played. For those of us that don't understand how that process works, can you kind of walk us through that? How do you decide what songs make it on the air and when they're played and that type of thing?
Right, so every week there's about 10 or 12 new songs that the program director and music director listen to. They put the names of those songs on a dartboard, and then they throw the dart.
No, I don't think that's true.
No, that's not how it works. With our music director, program director, Stan Phillips, great guy, he's been doing this forever, loves music. He's got an encyclopedical mind. He's just great with it. He works with our corporate people to determine what's going to be good in our market, when to start playing a record, how often to play it, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of corporate stuff that goes on to kind of lean you in the right direction. But with the local guy here, our man Stan Phillips, he really kind of blends it all together. And it's the science to it. Like when you listen to the radio, especially a station like Magic, we want you to listen all day. We want you to listen all during the workday. So we try not to have too many highs or too many lows. And there's lots of rules as to tempo and male and female and rock-based, country-based, rhythm and blues-based, and how it all flows into this nice thing where you never even think about changing the station. It's cool.
This time of year, there's always a debate about Christmas music. When is it too early to begin Christmas music? What do you think about that? Because personally, I can't get into the Christmas season at all until after Thanksgiving. I can't get into that spirit at all, but I know that a lot of people, like as soon as Halloween is over, want to start hearing that awful Mariah Carey song that gets played 1,000 times around.
One of my favorites.
Oh my God. All I Want for Christmas Is You, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It's a good song in and of itself, but hearing it 1,000 times, I think that's probably where my dislike comes in.
Well, like anything, yeah, it can be worn out. It's funny, like, we start, as soon as Labor Day hits, people start going on our Facebook page and saying, when does the Christmas music start? And we're like, relax. We do the Magic of Christmas. We go all Christmas music every year. We've been doing this, gosh, since I started there back in the 80s. And I think it's usually traditionally either the afternoon before Thanksgiving, or depending on how late in the month of November Thanksgiving is, it might be the Friday before Thanksgiving, just to kind of give people a little bit of a heads up for it. But it's so popular here. It's unbelievable. And it's hard now. Like today is what, 72 degrees as we're having this chat?
Not feeling Christmas today.
No, there's no way I want to hear Johnny Mathis singing anything like that today.
No.
But the day will come, and it'll be right around Thanksgiving for us, as always, when we flip the switch and we go all Christmas music. And it's great for us because I remember when we were kids how, I don't know, you guys are young, but when I was a kid, I think like every radio station went all Christmas music, or at least just about. So Christmas music was everywhere when I was a kid, and it was magical in that way. So now for moms and dads and kids to experience that, they put it on, they get in the car, they drive to school, the kids are counting down, we have the kids on the air telling how many days there are left till Christmas. It's really cool. It's magical.
The only thing I don't like is that it just stops abruptly on Christmas Day. And like the Christmas season should extend into the New Year, but you're like so sick of it because it starts so early. You know, people want to do away with it. Like we just had it, now you want to do away with it.
It's funny. It's like anything in life. People are always looking for the next thing. Like with us, we play nothing but Christmas music right through Christmas night. Then the day after Christmas, it's probably like 6 to 8 Christmas songs an hour. Then a day or two later, it goes down to 4 or 5, and then it kind of fades away by New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like anything. Look at this world nowadays. You know, it wasn't even Halloween, and the stores were decorated for Christmas already. So what are you going to do? You can't change them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Magic of Christmas. I really enjoy listening then. It definitely just puts you in a good mood. So thank you for doing that for us.
Well, you know what's going to be neat for you? It's going to be neat for you because your little baby Charlotte is how old now?
She'll be 2 the day after Thanksgiving. So she likes it. She loves music.
Oh my God. When she starts singing those Christmas When she starts singing those Christmas songs with you and the two of you, and you go out shopping and caroling, and she's gonna love it. And you're gonna love it too. It's awesome.
Yeah, she's already she loves to dance, loves music and loves to dance. It cracks me up. So it'll be a fun holiday season this year. But so Frankie, so you have interviewed, you've met so many different people in your job. I have to ask, who was the best person or the most interesting person you ever met or interviewed, in the course of working for Magic 93, and who was, I don't want to say the worst, but let's say the most difficult person that you had either interviewed or met or, in the course of your 32 years?
Well, I'm not stupid, so I'm going to make sure that I let you know the best person I ever interviewed was Joe Quinn. And that is the truth.
Good answer.
Very good answer, right?
That's right.
That's how I've lasted so long in this business.
We're trying to get him on this. We're trying to get him on this podcast because, wherever I go, people always ask questions about him. How does he do this? Where does he go to eat? Where does he buy this? Where does he? People are interested in that. So we're working on getting him on this podcast one of these days.
Right, and not to change the subject, he is such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. Like, honest to goodness, you don't meet people like that every day. He is a great, great guy. But as far as celebrities that I've met, like I've had a chance to meet or interview over the phone an awful lot of people. I had a chance to, meet like Phil Collins back in the 80s and early 90s when he was on tour with Genesis. And that was just like crazy because they were so huge. And with MTV and all those videos, he was gigantic. He was all right. He was more interested in getting back to his dressing room and watching the Philadelphia Flyers hockey game. That's what he was more worried about. But he did his picture and he met everybody, which was cool. Barry Manilow, who's been an icon and comes to this area loves him. He's called our show many times over the years and is always terrific. You know, the ones who really take it seriously and who are good at their jobs because they will make sure they call you by your name. They know what market they're talking about. Like Barry Manilow is the kind of guy, he will always mention Wilkes-Barre. He'll talk about being at the Kirby Center, how the people here are so nice. And you get people like that. Gosh, we've interviewed so many people over the years. It's usually when they have a project out. But those are really an awful lot of fun. I enjoy talking to, the guy who hosts The Amazing Race. He's a great guy and a wonderful TV show, that show, The Amazing Race. He was on our show a couple times too, and just to kind of pick his brain about how that show is done. Like, that's really amazing, and he was really good. Now, Nicole wants me to talk about the ones who weren't that good. Is that true, Nicole?
That's true. I don't want to just maybe difficult. Don't want to put you on the spot, though, but.
All right, I will give you just clues as to two people who were promoting appearances in the area and really seemed like they could not care less. And I don't know if it's because it was the early morning hour, or maybe it didn't matter to them if they sold tickets or not because they were getting paid a flat fee to come and appear. But one of them was a bald germaphobe from America's Got Talent.
Oh, I think I can guess who that is. We won't say any names.
Yes. And the other one is one of the hosts of The View who was in a movie called Ghost.
Really?
Oh, brutal, to the point where you just wanted to say to both of them, like, I'll hang up if you really don't want to keep doing this. That's fine. I got other stuff I can do.
Well, that's so disappointing. I'm hopeful that, though, the positive interviews that you've had over the years far outnumber the difficult ones.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the way it usually is. Most of them are so nice. And you realize that they're sitting there with a sheet that's telling them all these numbers they have to call. And each person gets 15 minutes. And now I'm in Wisconsin. And now I'm talking to Pennsylvania. Now I'm talking to Florida. And they're basically giving the same answers. So I try to make it very localized, make it fun for them, talk about certain things that I like about them and try to win them over onto my side. And usually they're terrific. Like, if they know that you're a fan, then they're great. Another one I thought was really, really cool, who was so nice, and you would think she would be nice. You remember Amy Grant, the singer, was married to Vince Gill.
Yes.
She was really popular in the early 90s.
Yeah, she had Baby Baby, Every Heartbeat. She had a great Christmas album out.
Yeah, she had some big hits.
Yeah, she did, and she would come here to the area. She would call the show like early in the morning, like 7:45, sitting at her kitchen table, cup of coffee, and just like talking to a normal person. Like, she was just so sweet. So those are the ones that you remember where you're like, man, that's really cool that somebody that big, that rich, that famous can be that nice too.
So, Frankie, what's the status of the radio industry now? I think, satellite radio came out a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if that really took off as much as people thought that it would. There's obviously other demands on people's time. Everybody has an iPhone. There's Apple Music, Pandora, etc. Give us kind of a sense from your standpoint of what's the status of the industry right now.
I think it's like anything. Radio is in the same boat as television. When Netflix and HBO and cable, it's just more options. And, you try to be as great as you can be, as live and as local as you can be, and as interesting, but sometimes just the fact that there are so many options, it all gets watered down. And where one television show might, have gotten a 50 share or a 40 share or 30 share back in the old days. Now, if they get an 8 share, that's incredible because there are so many other things to watch. Same thing goes for radio. But, the advantage that a station like Magic 93 has is, that we are live and we are local. And, that's the thing, that we can give people that local forecast, that local perspective, the local news, talk about things going on in the community, going out and being a part of the community itself with all the things that I've gotten to host over the years, everything from the Race for the Cure to being involved with you guys and the great projects that you do for the trunk or treats or the bike helmet giveaways. It's just always something. So to be out there in the community, that's something that we can do that satellite radio or your iPhone or your iPad or your 8-track player can't do. So we like that.
Well, you're a personality and you become part of people's routine and they're used to hearing your voice. And as you indicated, you're talking about things that are locally important that you can't get on Pandora or satellite radio or whatever else people are using these days.
Yeah, it's the truth. We get to talk about, we can talk about the election, but not also the election, but the local angle of all that, or to make some jokes about how beautiful it's been or how cold it got over the last couple of days at the beginning of this week, or school and COVID and where we went to school. My morning show partner, Jocelyn, she's fantastic. We talk about, she went to school at Coughlin, I went to school at Bishop Hoban, so we can kind of work all that local stuff in and get out in the community, host events, meet people. It's funny, though, the longer you do this, the more people get to know you. And even though you're on the radio, they might not know what you look like eventually because of Facebook, social media, YouTube, television commercials, appearances that we do. People do get to know you. So it's funny, like if I get to go on vacation, whether we go to like New York or Ocean City, Maryland. I remember being on the boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland, the first night of my vacation. My sister lives there. So we all went to the boardwalk with my daughter and my wife, my sister and her kids. And I was like, oh, it's just such a good feeling, like to be away for a while. You can relax a little bit. Nobody knows me. You don't have to be on all the time. And as soon as I said that, I hear, hey, Frankie!
I got to tell you, when we do our segments on Magic 93, it's rare. And they're only, a minute or so, a minute and a half. It's rare that someone doesn't tell me, hey, I heard you on the radio today. I mean, the reach is there. I mean, so I can only imagine what you go through. If we're only doing a little snippet, you're doing it every day.
It's great. It's an awful lot of fun. And, when we adopted our daughter from Guatemala, she's almost 15 now, that kind of became like a big thing. And when we went to Guatemala to bring her home, we broadcast our show from down there and kind of let everybody in on the joy of that experience and what that was like and the stress and the tension. And so, people they get to know you, you become part of their family and they become part of our family. I get to know these people. I've seen all their kids grow up and now those kids have kids and they're listening to us as well. It's crazy.
Well, we definitely appreciate you, Frankie, and it's so nice to have some consistency, hearing you in the morning and, getting to peek into your life and what's going on, it gives people comfort and people appreciate that. So we, appreciate what you do and how much you've done for this area and allowing us to come on and, talk about HKQ Kids. We can't thank you enough for all that you do for this area.
Well, I can't thank you guys. You're such a big part of the community as well, and the firm is just terrific. I at first thought that this podcast, we were going to be discussing mattresses, but then I'm like, oh, the firm.
Yeah.
Clever, very clever. So let me ask you, do we have another 60 seconds or so? Can I ask you guys?
Sure.
So do you watch all these movies about lawyers? Speaking of the firm, like, do you watch those movies and are you like amazed by them? Do you find them humorous? Do you find them half true? Like, what do you guys think of those kind of movies? Because in a lot of movies,
I gotta tell you something funny. I generally do not like legal movies. I think up until a couple weeks ago, the only legal movie that I saw was My Cousin Vinny, which is actually a great legal movie because there's a lot. It brings up a lot of different issues, things that come up in trial. I mean, it has a lot of relevance. But one of our partners, Don Ligorio, had been talking about The Verdict and what a great movie it is. And I watched it that night. I said, you know what? You're hyping it up. I'm going to watch it. And this was Paul Newman, early 80s. But it was great. I enjoyed it. But generally speaking, I'll let Nicole weigh in. But for me, I prefer other genres. I don't really like legal movies, although I did like that one. So maybe I should branch out a little bit.
Right.
I kind of in the same camp as Mike. It's not like I want to watch everything. I think a lot of times you watch the stuff and it's so far-fetched in terms of what they're doing and what's reality that you're thinking like, oh boy. But, I have to say, like, sometimes Law and Order really can draw me in. So, that's one exception.
Yeah, I like if you're branching out in a TV show, I liked when we were in law school, my two of my roommates we went to high school, college, and law school together. And we sort of had this routine every day after lunch. There was a Law and Order. I think any time of day you could probably watch Law and Order. It's still on in syndication. But we used to watch the NYPD Blue, the detective show, which was a great show, and Law and Order. We used to watch that when we were in law school every afternoon. We used to watch reruns of that. That was kind of like our tradition.
I have to say though, in terms of TV shows, like I'm more of I like the escapism. So I love like Dancing with the Stars, Bravo, Real Housewives franchises, love it all. So
That is awesome.
no, maybe I shouldn't be saying that. Maybe that's embarrassing, but I love it.
No, that's the masses, man. Everybody gets into that stuff. But in honor of my cousin Vinny, from now on, I will refer to you two as my two youths. Okay?
I love it. I love it. Think of how many pop culture things have come out of that movie, though. I mean, that was great. It was a great movie. Ralph Macchio, Joe Pesci, and Marissa Tomei. I think she won an Oscar for that performance.
She did win Best Supporting Actress, and she was so great in that movie, man. How she remembered all those lines, those technical things about the cars and the transmissions and everything else.
Yeah.
And then she went on.
Pontiac Tempest.
She went on to date George Costanza. Yes.
She did. Yeah. Yeah. Great movie. So that's one legal movie that I'll recommend, and I'll recommend The Verdict now too, because that was pretty good.
Good. And if I ever see Gene Hackman in your office, I'm going outside. I'm leaving.
Yeah. that's right. Absolutely. Good stuff. Frankie, thanks for joining us. We had a fun chat, and we'll probably be talking to you soon on one of our legal topics when we join you in the morning.
And just wanted to remind everyone, and I'm sure Frankie, you'll be there, but December 12th, we are having our HKQ holiday movie giveaway. This year it's at the drive-in, the Garden Drive-In. We can't have it at the Kirby due to COVID, but hopefully, Frankie, we'll see you there and see everyone else there as well.
Fantastic. Great way to kick off the holiday season. To you and yours, have a great Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year will be here before you know it. And let's hope 2021 is a lot better than 2020, right?
For sure.
Hoping.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.